Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about the books I read in December. I don't say that I had the most amazing December reading month. That is because of several things. First of all, I was busy with work. Then I had my end of the year 7 video series, Bookmas videos I did, which I didn't pre-film. So I was really busy doing that in December. In the latter part, I would say. And the third is that I knit a sweater throughout December, so I was busy with that. So I've watched a lot of great series and movies on Netflix, but I have not read so much, which is okay. I don't mind it at all. I think I had a great fun with my knitting and with filming those videos. And the first book I want to talk about is Riley Sager's Home Before Dark. I was really eager to pick up the newest release by Riley Sager. I have read a couple of Riley Sager books already and I quite enjoyed them. And I was ready to pick this one up because I heard so many great things about it on BookTube. And I really enjoyed it for the most part. I think this is a great book to pick up around the end of the year. I think it has that spooky, haunted house vibe. And set in a community which focuses on this house, where a lot of like mysterious things happened over the years no one really knows about. It has kind of a sinister past. It had these gothic horroristic vibes, and I think that's what made this book really interesting for me and really pulled me in. So basically we follow this young woman who inherited this great house from her father, and her family bought this house when she was like 5 or 6 years old, and they had a great deal. It was really cheap because it was maybe impossible to sell because there were some really gruesome things happening there in the past. So they moved into that house and they had to flee about 20 days later because of some unusual things happening. And she was a young girl back then, so now she really doesn't remember what happened. But her father wrote this sensationalist book, a non-fiction account of their time in that house. And everyone kind of knows her and knows her story, knows who she is, because that book was just so popular. So now she goes back to put the house into shape because she wants to sell it, but also to find out what really happened because she really doesn't remember. So it's a great setting, and there's so many quirky and so many scary and interesting things happening in that house, and all the time you like think, okay, is there a ghost or isn't there a ghost? Who are the original owners of that house, and what happened to that family? What happened to the previous family who's been there? So there's so many elements which kind of pull you in. But ultimately I feel that the end of this book kind of disappointed me. There were some twists and turns I didn't anticipate. There were some I did anticipate. But overall, I think this book kind of disappointed me, but it has nothing to do with the book. It disappointed me because I was really more into the horror vibe, and I don't know who am I by saying that. I really hate horror movies, but maybe in book form, maybe. Because all the time I kept thinking I want more gruesome things to happen, and they kind of did, but not in a way I wanted them to. So maybe I'm just ready to pick up some horror books. So if you have some good recommendations, please let me know in the comments below. And then I picked up another murder mystery / detective story, and this is The Darkness by Ragnar Jonasson. So this book is set on Iceland, and we follow an older woman, a detective. We follow her when she's just about to be retired. She has really a little bit time left on the job, but she's kind of pushed into early retirement, and it seems like her colleagues want to get rid of her. She's also a woman within a very masculine environment, and she's kind of feels a bit also discriminated against because of her gender. So we get all these flashes from her past and the present and the cases she's solving. So basically her boss tells her, okay, you have to retire now, but if you want, you can solve this one case, and whatever case you want, you have a week. So she picks up this older case which hasn't been solved, about this woman from a Russian immigrant who went missing, and she tries to solve that case. And I think what really pulled me in is the setting, but also there was this feeling about this woman, a little bit about her past, and why she was so alone, and what happened to her, that she really fears retirement, because she fears that being a detective is the only thing she is and the only thing she has. So I really love the combo of her and her backstory versus the case versus the work environment, and how she feels kind of pushed out of there by or her other male colleagues, and why maybe she wasn't promoted versus why only her male colleagues were promoted. So was she discriminated, or what happened there? So there's a lot of things happening, and this was kind of a short audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't the best one out there, I feel. But if you really like these type of stories and set in a really cold environment in Iceland, I think this is a great one. And this is the first in a series, and I think in the subsequent books we follow the same detective but earlier in her life. So I think that's kind of interesting, because normally we follow like a linear timeline. We don't go back in time. Next I picked up Nomadland by Jessica Bruder. This is a non-fiction book in which the author, who is a journalist, follows throughout several years this group of people living out of vans and trailers and minivans and all kinds of vehicles. And this is about those people and how they live and what made them choose this lifestyle, and how is it to live like that in the US. In 2020 or around this time. I think this book was written a few years ago. And I found this really interesting because a lot of people, it seems like, are pushed to live in vans and in vehicles because after the financial crisis, basically they lost their houses, they lost their savings, and they just decided to live out of vans and trailers and all kinds of vehicles because they couldn't keep up with working just so they could pay a mortgage, just so they could pay the bills, and just being on the brink of bankruptcy basically, and losing your whole life savings at an older age when you're kind of ready to enjoy your leisurely retirement. And these were middle-class people who had great jobs and a great education, and now maybe they have to do seasonal work within agriculture, or now maybe they have to go and work in an Amazon warehouse, which was, by the way, horrific, the way those people worked there and the conditions and what they had to endure, because it was such a physically straining job just to be able to survive, and how they were waiting for the social security check every month. So it was a really interesting view on how these people live, and how more and more people are exploring this alternative of living off the grid like this, or just living really this very alternative lifestyle. These people are not outside of the economic system in the US, but they live kind of on the fringe of it. And how they gather in the desert, and how they follow the weather. So they go south when it's colder, and how they follow these seasonal works all around the country. And yeah, I think it was also kind of heartbreaking, but there was also some sort of hopeful feeling to it all, because they kind of left everything behind that kind of kept them down in a way. And it felt like some of them were saying that they were out of that rat race in some way, and maybe focusing on other things and just imagining a different lifestyle. It's not like this is what they expected, but yeah, I think it was an interesting view of this alternate lifestyle, which is getting more and more popular. Also, I've seen so many of those tiny house channels here on YouTube because, yeah, who can afford to live in a great mansion? And when I think about the US and the great houses people live in, I think they're so amazing. But again, they must cost a lot to maintain. And just thinking about the small apartments we live here, for example, in Copenhagen, I think the comparison and the contrast is pretty big. So yeah, I think that it was a surprisingly good, well-written book. The next book I read was When We Were Orphans by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have read 4 books by Kazuo Ishiguro this year, and I have enjoyed most of them. This one is not my favorite, but I do enjoy and appreciate what it does and how it describes life in Shanghai as an expat at the first part of the 20th century. So basically, you follow a young boy who lives with his parents in Shanghai. His parents disappear, and then he is taken to England to live with an aunt, and he grows up there, and he becomes a detective. So we follow him a little bit in London, in England, where he makes a name for himself. Everyone knows him and celebrates him as this great detective. But all along, his plan is to go back to Shanghai, to China, to figure out what happened to his parents. So I feel that there were some, in some ways I feel that this book was a bit maybe too long, and I didn't really understand why some parts are included in it, because it didn't feel like one whole cohesive story. Like some parts dragged and didn't feel necessary to the wholeness of it. I really enjoyed the second part where we focus more on life in Shanghai, in China, and how the expats lived, and the author's view on this expat community. This book looks how the British were involved in the opium trade, and it looks at how the society and the expat community in China, in Shanghai, were connected to that trade and what the consequences are of that trade to the whole Chinese society. And then later, when he goes back to Shanghai to figure out what happened to his parents, there's also a great section which deals with the Sino-Japanese wars. And when I started this book, I felt immediately that the narration and the tone was very similar to that in The Remains of the Day. And when it comes to the main character and his profession, I think, again, there are similarities to The Remains of the Day and Stevens, the main character in that. So I think from that point of view, I really enjoyed the similarities. And yeah, the book again was kind of really sad and heartbreaking at the end. And there were some things in it I really didn't see coming. And in a way, I could say that this was maybe kind of Kazuo Ishiguro's take on murder mystery, more like mystery than murder, I would say. And then I read The End of Her by Shari Lapena, in which we follow a young couple who recently had twins. And this couple, it seems like they have the perfect life, the perfect house, money, the perfect job, the perfect family. But then the husband has some secrets in his past, and these secrets and his past come back to the forefront of their lives through this woman, Erica, because she knows apparently things about this man and his past, his previous marriage. He has an ex-wife who died. At the same time, they really struggle with these children, these twins they have, because they're really young and they really cannot sleep. So they are so tired, sleep deprived. The woman goes around forgetting what she's done and leaving the door open, and the man goes to work and really cannot focus, so he's missing clients and so on and so forth. And on top of that, we have Erica, this kind of really awful woman who comes and plays around with men and with everyone and their feelings. She's just awful and says these horrible things about this man, and kind of makes the wife doubt as well. Or is it just because she's sleep deprived and tired? So you don't really know what's happening. So overall, I really enjoyed the setup, and I think the first part was really amazingly done. But towards the end, I felt that everything was kind of handed to us, and I really didn't feel surprised. I was kind of tired by the end of it. I don't know, it just felt that even though it was fast-paced, there wasn't momentum in the story in the same way. Maybe it's because all the mystery, the murder happened in the past, so there was nothing in present which kind of built up to something like that. Overall, I also think that the characterization was done really poorly, especially when it comes to Erica. She's just this evil woman. We don't really know why. She enjoys being evil because she's beautiful, she's young, she's slim, she's a blonde, I think, and she's just evil. There were just a lot of things happening, but overall, it just felt a bit flat, especially towards the end. It was just convenient, I would say. And the last one I want to talk about is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, I really wanted to listen to this one, but unfortunately, my library only had available the audio book of the BBC adaptation, which is only 4 hours long. So it's a very condensed summary of the story. The audiobook was really, really well narrated and really well done, but ultimately I wanted to read the whole thing because I want to watch the Netflix adaptation. So now I don't want to read the whole book again so shortly after I listened to the audiobook. So I think the Netflix adaptation must wait. But overall, I really enjoyed this story. And as I was listening to it, I realized that I must have read this a long time ago because I kind of remember some details. Yeah, I guess this was before I kept track of my reading via Goodreads many years ago. But anyways, I will definitely come back to this and maybe just read another Daphne du Maurier in the meantime. So these are all the books I read in the last part of November and in December. As I said, it wasn't such a reading heavy month for me, December, because I was focused on so many other different things. I'm really happy how my knitting went, and I'm really happy with the series I watched on Netflix and on HBO. I am, for example, watching his Dark Materials, which is really great. I really enjoy it. I just started with the second season the other day, and I'm getting more and more invested in it. Also, I kind of started the first episode of The Stand, which is out on HBO now, but because I'm also listening to the book, I think I should wait with the series until the book is done, because as I looked a little bit at the beginning of the first episode, I felt like they were going back and forth in time, and I don't want to spoil the book, of course. Let me know what series you are into at the moment. I think there's so many great ones out there. And I think I will start another knitting project. So I will definitely be watching some more series in January as well. But yeah, that is it from me for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.